Let's talk about white balance. White balance, or color temperature, is how warm or cool your image is. You have complete control over this, and if you want to be a pro filmmaker, you have to understand how to manually adjust your white balance or color temperature to get the best images. In the white balance menu of your camera, you'll see that it has a bunch of different options and presets. There's even an auto function, but I pray over everything that's holy, don't trust the auto feature. Never trust auto. Always go manual. You see, your eyes have an auto white balance feature that works amazingly. Cameras have tried to replicate this, but they sometimes do a terrible job, so you need to learn how to use the manual white balance. Now, the easiest way to describe white balance is saying that the lower the number or Kelvin your white balance is, the cooler or more blue your image is, and the higher your Kelvin or white balance is, the warmer or more red your image is. So then you might think, well, why not just stick it in the middle and then you're set, right? Not quite. You see, different light sources let off different temperatures of color. The sun, for example, has a different color temperature than this light bulb. And although the sun is super duper hot, it actually has a cooler light temperature than this light bulb. So if you're shooting with a certain color temperature outdoors in the sun, and then you shoot with that same color temperature indoors, your indoor footage is going to be a lot warmer than your outdoor footage. So then you might say, well, then just choose one color temperature for outdoors and one for indoors, right? Well, it's not that simple, because you see, even different light bulbs have different color temperatures. You have this one and this one and that one and this one, and they're all different. Some are warmer or cooler than others, so it really depends on what color temperature you should shoot at. And even with the sun, the color temperature is different during sunrise and sunset than it is during midday. And it's different if you're shooting in the shade or during a cloudy day, so again, it depends. So I'm gonna walk you through your most common shooting scenarios and give you an estimate of what your white balance might be during those times, but when it comes down to it, your eye is the best judge. As a general rule of thumb, you always want the color temperature on your camera to match what you see with your eyes. So if you're shooting outdoors, you'd want to shoot with a color temperature of anywhere from 5300 Kelvin or higher. If there are no clouds in the sky and the sun's ablazing, 5300 to 5600 is your best bet. If the sun has just dipped below the horizon or is about to come up over the horizon, it's a lot cooler, so you'll want to crank up your color temperature to anywhere from 6000 to even 9000 Kelvin. Again, matching it with what you see with your eyes to compensate for that cooler light. If it's a cloudy day or if you're shooting in the shade, the light coming in isn't as hot, so you'll need to raise your color temperature to make up for that, being anywhere from 5700 to 6500 Kelvin. When you're shooting indoors, unless you have a light source that is daylight or 5600 Kelvin, chances are your lights will be a lot warmer. So your white balance should be anywhere from 4800 Kelvin to, I've shot even as low as 2000 Kelvin for lights that are really warm, color speaking. You don't have to actually feel how warm your light bulbs are. That would be ridiculous. Alright, now here's a tricky one. What if you're shooting indoors, but you also have a big window open and a lot of outdoor light is coming in through the window? Now you have two different color temperatures hitting your subject. The best thing to do in this scenario is to put your color balance closer to the most dominant light source. So if most of the light is coming from outside, I would recommend first turning off all the indoor lights or bringing in some lights that are daylight. But if that's not an option, shoot closer to 5000 Kelvin. If most of the light is coming from indoors, set your color temperature cooler to make up for those warm indoor lights. The only time I would recommend shooting on auto white balance is if you were shooting a shot that changes color temperature during the shot, like if you were shooting outdoors and then you came indoors during the same take. But that's it. You are forbidden in all other situations. The biggest mistake I see beginner filmmakers make with white balance is not setting the right color for skin tones. Usually 90% of the time, beginners shoot with skin tones that are way too warm and don't match what you see with your eyes. So when you're on a shoot, make sure to check and double check and make sure that the colors that you see with your eyes match what you see in your camera. You sometimes have to get really close to the screen because unless you have an external monitor, most screens are super hard to see. So get up close to the screen and check your screen and then check your subject. Check your screen, check your subject. If they match, you're good to go. Okay, now here's something that most people won't tell you about color temperatures and white balance, but it's an absolute game changer. In the menu system of your camera, there's a place where you can check the tint or color tone of your white balance as well. This really comes in handy when shooting indoors because a lot of times fluorescent lights will emit an ugly green hue. So to compensate for that, you can add a little bit of magenta into your image. White balance is more than just Kelvin. It's also checking the color tone of your image or anything other than warmer and cooler colors. With this, you can get super dialed in and your image will end up looking great. Now, chances are you probably won't nail your white balance on your first few shoots. That's okay. Do the best you can, and if it's still off, you can still redeem a little bit of those colors in editing when you color correct. So make sure to watch the color correcting video in the course to see how to do that. But that's it for this video. Make sure you watch this as many times as you need to learn and memorize these concepts. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.